So this is Steve, and I'm here with Gordon Anthony. Gordon, you're a Democrat, and you're running for the At-Large City Council.
That's correct.
For the nomination in May. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe for those who don't know you?
Sure. Well, I'm a retired City of Fort Wayne firefighter. Retired as a captain in 1998 after serving 28 years with the city. Uh, gives you a pretty broad political background by being a public employee, especially in police and fire, because our jobs were so closely aligned to the politics of the city at the time. And it's a big spinoff from the earlier days in the 60s and the early 70s. For example, when you joined the police or fire department, and in a lot of cases anywhere in the city, you had to be of the party that was in power. And then you paid a 2% of your wages back to the city or back to the party, and those kind of things have all changed. But a lot of the day-to-day ramifications are still based on, in 4 years your employer can change, the employees don't. And so you learn to live within that realm, you learn to live with it. One time you're negotiating with Democrats, next time you're negotiating with Republicans, and in the early days they would change badges. So the captain today might be the driver tomorrow at the end of the election cycle. I've been in Fort Wayne. It's not I'm not a native son. It's my adopted home. I used to come here in grade school and summers in my high school years to visit my mom and stepdad that lived in Fort Wayne. Got to know the city, fell in love with the city. I came from a real small little town in the Ozarks down in Missouri. So this was a huge metropolis to me. Went in the Navy, spent a little over 4 years in the United States Navy, served in both oceans. And when I came home, came back to Fort Wayne, this is where I wanted to come because there were more opportunities here than anywhere else that I had been, and still be close to home. I had a chance to go to New York and work there, go to San Francisco and work there, but I wanted some family around it. I wanted to establish my own family, and came here, met and married a local girl. This September, it'll be 45 years. So I've established some pretty good roots in Fort Wayne. All my children and grandchildren, of course, are native here. But just about my whole adult life has been involved with service to somebody or something. Even in the Navy, I wasn't just a sailor on the ship. I started out in the Naval magazine as a driver. Was transferred then to headquarters with the Admiral staff at Commander Naval Forces Marianas, and began that service thing because I was the one that scheduled USO shows for that whole theater, that whole area. And so you get used to dealing with people outside of what you're normally doing and setting things up and running things and micromanaging and those kind of things. All the way to including in the ship was in Naval Intelligence Division on a ship was a yeoman, was the legal yeoman, so I got into the legal aspects of military code of justice and some things that a lot of the guys didn't. You know, a Boilermaker is not going to have privy to the top secret clearances that I carried and those kind of things. So left the service and joined the fire department after working in the trucking industry and automotive safety. Was the road safety supervisor for the Kroger Company warehouse that was in Fort Wayne at that time. And then joined the fire service in 1970. Initially because it was a rock solid employment. There was no layoffs and that sort of thing. Got into it. It gets into your blood. Once you're a brother firefighter, you're always a brother firefighter. Today can visit any fire station in the city or any fire station in the country and just walk in, introduce myself, and be made to feel at home. You know, you have that thing. Intense training. During my services in the fire department, I was the union secretary and then served as president 2 different terms. In those times, I helped establish the collective bargaining ordinance that was established by a joint committee of city council and police and fire union officials that wrote the collective bargaining bill that we're still using today. Lobbied downstate at the state legislature for public employees for about 14 years. And also during that time was a member of the American Legion, where I serve on the state legislative committee, as well as the National Security and Foreign Affairs Committee and the Community Involvement Committee. So I've had sessions on state levels, I've worked politics on local level, and through the state legislative committees have gone to Washington, D.C. and testified or worked Congress, if you will. Mm-hmm. In fact, I was in Washington, D.C. on 9/11 for that purpose, and we all know what happened then, and we didn't get to our meetings because of some other things that were working. But when I left the fire service, went to work for the county for a short time, and then to the American Red Cross as a Northeast Indiana Emergency Services Director. And then through that, a lot of schooling that dealt with disaster handling of people, of housing, of feeding, international events with the Red Cross, mitigation classes, damage assessment classes, and just the whole realm of assistance to the general public that the Red Cross is known for. Mm-hmm. And my desire was in the administrative end of those disaster scenarios, not necessarily a volunteer that would get on the truck and go around and hand out meals to the volunteer workers. But I got in more into the disaster center management and the housing management and supervisory roles. Was the classes that I took, because they didn't have many people want to do that. After leaving that, worked around Fort Wayne and other jobs all through this period. I was also a remodeling contractor doing special projects for people. Didn't build big things, didn't put very small rooms on, but a lot of repair, a lot of refurbishing, a lot of special projects that people wanted. So it kind of kept me involved with everything that was going on. This opportunity came along. I've run before. I ran for state senate in '86, but I've told my wife since then, I said, you know, I didn't win that, even though I came very close. And I think it was Providence, because I was union president, commander of my American Legion post. I had a business on the side, and was just doing all of these things at the same time. Would not have been a very effective legislator. And so some deity knew that and took me out of the picture, but kept me close enough that I thought, well, I'm going to dabble in it later on. Really hadn't given it much thought. Occasionally during elections, I worked the polls as an official at the polls. And so you keep in the game, basically. Until this time came around, I was talking with the mayor's wife, who I've worked several campaigns with, and she said, well, why don't you ever run for council or something? And it just kind of sparked that bug, if you will. And I got to thinking, I've got enough gray whiskers now to know what the game is, that it's not all fun. There's a lot of serious work that goes on. And do I have the background for it? Well, I have now all the background that I think I need to bring to the public an individual who is a public servant. That was what my career was, as a public servant. And I've served the citizens of Fort Wayne in every corner of the city. I have probably driven every street at one time or another in 28 years. And have seen people in their best moments and in their baser moments. I've been there when they were elated, and I've been there when they was in total sorrow. Was the first state certified EMT on the fire department. Became an EMT instructor. Helped establish the Fort Wayne Emergency Medical Division. In its early infancy, it was a city department. Drove ambulances for a while. So it goes back to this service to the community. Now I bring all that knowledge, all of that ability that I had, and it's going to better be served as sitting as a council at large. I can represent everybody in the city that I love. So I'm not going to be shoehorned into one particular district. Like I say, I've been around, I've been all over the place. I know what's good in Northwest, what's good in Southeast, and all the things in between.